Hi everybody, my name's Bob Klaber. I'm one of the general paediatricians based at Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust, which is in northwest London. And I just want to spend a few minutes talking through some thoughts and ideas around learning in the workplace. Now, apologies for the somewhat amateur video. I've taken a few minutes off from some leave, but I really wanted to share these thoughts with you because it's something that's very dear to my heart. So a tiny bit about me. I'm, as I said, a general paediatrician. I spend about a third of my time doing that now, and about 2/3 of the time as the Director of Strategy, Research and Innovation at the Trust, which is a really interesting role and gets me in all sorts of interesting opportunities and scrapes. And at some point it'll be great to meet you in your training and perhaps as a consultant colleague, and I can share a little bit more about that. I wanted to start by saying a massive welcome and a massive congratulations. It's a fantastic achievement to get into the training programme in London, and a really exciting moment as you join a very, very special community. And I feel incredibly privileged to have been part of that community for getting on for 20 years now. So I had 8 very happy years as a trainee and was very involved in setting up the trainee committee in the latter years of my training, and have now been a consultant in London for the last 11 years or so, and very much part of the community, which is the London School of Paediatrics and Child Health. Spent many years as a training programme director, and although I'm not doing that role anymore, I still have great fun and privilege in being very linked into everybody and thinking about how we all learn and develop as paediatricians, and ultimately thinking about the 2 or so million children and young people who live in London and how can we do our very best to keep improving their health and well-being. So really that's what we're all here for. And you guys have joined in as very much part of that team, and at such an exciting time in your careers. So I hope that everything you've heard from all my wonderful colleagues so far has resonated. I hope it's got you really excited, but this is an incredibly special moment, and the choice that you've made to come and join the training programme, I hope is something that you will be very, very excited about. So we're going to spend a moment thinking about learning and thinking about the importance of that. And I guess when I reflect back on my days at school and at university and medical school, and then perhaps my early years as a doctor, I sort of plodded along and enjoyed stuff and turned up to things and, you know, did my best to try and learn as much as I could, but I didn't spend too much time thinking about me as an individual and thinking about my preferences about how I best like to learn. What are the things that I really enjoyed doing? What were the approaches and styles that I seemed to really thrive from? And I guess inadvertently I'd started to pick some of that up, but really it was when I was a trainee that I started to think about that a lot more and started to make some choices about how I learned in the workplace in a really effective way. So there's loads of educational theory about this, and this talk isn't going to go into that in any detail at all. But just to really flag that there are some people who really like to do some reading and like to pick up the theory of things before they go and experience stuff. There are other people who absolutely love to get in the deep end, and I'm one of these, and just allow things to happen and then try and make sense of them afterwards. And there are other people who really thrive on the sort of reflective practice about thinking through and maybe talking through or writing down thoughts and chronology of what might have happened in a certain episode or certain clinical case, and then using that for their learning. So we all learn in different ways. We're all capable of doing all 3 of those, but we definitely have different preferences. One of the slightly difficult things is the regulator, so the GMC, and indeed our Royal College and our training programme have some expectations on us. And I think if we're honest, they're fairly light overall, but they're not non-existent. And they require us, for example, to show and demonstrate reflective practice. So if you're naturally a really good reflective person and you like writing things down, that piece of things is going to be really easy. my personal preference, I think about stuff quite a lot. I cycle to work and cycle back. I use that as a great reflective time. But as you can imagine, on a bicycle, it's not a great time to be documenting stuff in my e-portfolio. So I'm not a natural person for filling things in portfolios. I'm absolutely very comfortable with the concept of reflective practice and thinking things through, and it really helps me to learn and grow as a paediatrician. But I don't find the writing of it down particularly useful and particularly easy and natural. So I've learned over the years to try and be just gently organised about that, to play the game, to sit down and do a bit of capturing of some of the things that I've been thinking about and reflecting on. So that'd be a nice example of knowing who I am, knowing where my preferences are, but also being able to sort of fit in with some of the requirements that are around. And indeed, you might have some requirements around teaching and about turning up to teaching, and some of you may thrive off a more sort of set-piece teaching type environment, and others may find that less useful. And again, part of this is about how you grow and evolve as a learner, understanding your preference, but being able to sort of also fit in with some of the things that are around you. The other big thing that I really point out, and I think is so key, is one of the great challenges of your job that you're about to go into, and the rotations every 6 months or 12 months, slightly longer than through foundation year training, but perhaps still on the short side, is the constant challenge of new people and new places and new ways of doing things. But I guess in that is also great opportunity as well to learn from new people, to learn from different ways of doing things, to learn from different ways of thinking about things. And I really encourage you to do everything you can to talk to people and listen to people and settle into those new places as best you possibly can, and really thrive off the different ways that people approach things. And really push people you're working with hard, be that the multidisciplinary team or the consultant who you might be on call with, or your educational supervisor or the registrar you're working with. Really push them hard to help explain their thinking behind things. So as well as teaching you, really want you to encourage them to explain things, explain their thought processes, explain what's worrying them, explain why they made a particular choice of a decision over something else, those sorts of things. Try and drive those conversations. I'm sure many of the people around you will be naturally very, very good at those conversations anyway, but I guess it's what a great mentor of mine called being curious. This curiosity quotient, constantly, little children are great at it, aren't they? Asking why all the time. And I think there's something, without getting completely annoying and driving people crackers by asking why the whole time, like a 3-year-old does, there's something about staying really curious. And I think lots of us who are sort of middle or later parts of our careers still get that great sense of excitement and energy from the curiosity. And, the more paediatrics I do, the more I realise how little I know. So this constant sense of exploration, and through the very difficult months we've had of COVID, and many of us in the paediatric community in London have been very involved, as well as looking after and thinking about children and the wider impacts on children and young people, have also been getting back involved in adult care, as I'm sure many of you listening to this will have done as well. And that's really taught us something extraordinary. The beginning part of 2020, we had never even heard of this COVID-19. By a week or two before it was landing properly in the UK in a big way, we knew absolutely nothing about it. So it's been a rapid learning for us. And I think there's many other bits of healthcare clearly at a much slower pace than that, where we need new learning, and that's going to be really exciting for you and people like me as we go on with our careers. So I just want to think a little bit about what we need to learn, because the truth of it is it's really broad. So at a starting point, the level 1 curriculum is a really good guide for you, and in your first couple of years as a paediatric trainee, there's a really helpful focus of MRC PCH, the membership exam. Now, you might not call it helpful, and in some ways these exams can feel like a bit of a burden, and the different steps that you've got to get through. But again, I'd really encourage you to go at that as proactively as you can. and keep your learning really broad. Use the level 1 curriculum as a sort of broader guide, but when you meet interesting things that are beyond the curriculum or wider, go for it, get stuck into them, because they're the things that will really give you your energy. When it comes to the exam, there is something about understanding and being really smart about exam technique. Now, the exams are deliberately designed to try and make sure that they represent the realities of life as much as they possibly can. And largely they do a pretty good job at that. But they are still an exam, and they require that sort of exam technique nous and canniness. So make sure that you're not naive to that. Make sure you're getting teaching from people who understand the exams well. Make sure you're doing reading about some of the exam technique as well, so that you don't lose marks unnecessarily on that front. But as well as the clinical side, I'd really encourage you from day one to be thinking about everything else. Healthcare is about people, it's about humanity, it's about how we communicate with each other, it's about compassion, it's around thinking about health and well-being, it's about leadership. Increasingly, it's going to be about working as teams and systems of care. And all of those things offer really exciting and different challenges, and perhaps quite different ones to what you and I learnt at medical school or university and in our early years as a doctor. So as you're carrying on with your work and as I'm carrying on with mine, these sort of challenges are going to only grow for us. So really look hard and think hard about how the people around you are working. What can you learn from them about the way they communicate with each other? What can you learn from them about leadership? About how they make things clear to people, about how they explain things, about how they're really person-centred. What can you learn about their behaviours, about their kindness, about how they collaborate with people, and all these sorts of things. Really, really important. Be like a sponge. Watch people and listen and reflect and ask people to give you a little bit more. Ask them to give the commentary of what's going on in their head as they go. And I guess when I think about when around learning, the big piece, it sounds a bit sort of rubbish, but it's really, really continuous. So one of the things that gives me a real energy to sort of keep being on call and keep doing my clinical work and everything else that I do is this sense of continuous learning. Really, no 2 days are different. No 2 days are the same even. Every day feels a little bit different. Every week that I go through has some new and interesting and exciting challenges. And I think all of us in paediatrics have been able to find lots of different niches and lots of different opportunities. Some of them might be very subspecialist on the clinical side. Some of them may really have a strong teaching and education feel to them. There's a really fantastic research community within paediatrics in London and many, many other opportunities. So really seek those out as well. You're going to clearly need to focus on your clinical learning as a key component, but make sure you're looking for these as well. And really the final word is to say, make sure you have some fun as well. Healthcare is a great privilege to work in. Nothing better than paediatrics, I think. Almost all of us working in paediatrics couldn't be more pleased with the choices that we've made and the extraordinary community that we feel part of in London. Really work hard to be part of that community, to contribute to it as quickly as you can. I hope that you'll feel it's like some giant family. Even though I'm no longer a training programme director, I still feel a huge part of the London School of Paediatrics. Greatly enjoy bumping into people, still do a lot of mentoring and those sorts of things. And as well as hopefully helping other people, they give me a great sense of fulfilment and excitement about the future as well. So have fun, work hard. Do seek out people for help if things are feeling difficult or a bit uncertain. There are lots of wonderful people to talk to. Some of them may be peers, some of them may be your educational supervisor or training programme director. There are plenty of us around in London who've been around a while and be very happy to listen and share some thoughts and ideas. So good luck, have fun. I really look forward to meeting you at some point and I hope that's been a useful few minutes. Bye.